The Habsburgs. From obscure Swiss counts to rulers of half of Europe, the Habsburgs mastered a kind of conquest that required no armies. When Rudolf I became Holy Roman Emperor in 1273, the family began marrying its way into crowns and territories across the continent: Austria, Bohemia, Hungary, Spain, the Netherlands. Their influence spanned from the Alps to the Americas. Under Charles V in the 16th century, they commanded a realm so vast it was said the sun never set on their empire. But the sprawl that made them formidable also made them fragile. Religious wars, rebellious provinces, and the loss of the Spanish branch in 1700 began a long decline. The Austro-Hungarian branch limped into the 20th century, only to be swept away in the wreckage of World War I. Yet their fall set the stage for the rival houses that had long challenged their dominance. None more enduring than France's own royal line. The Capetian dynasty. In 987, the nobles of a fractured kingdom elected Hugh Capet as king of France, beginning a dynasty that would endure for more than 8 centuries. Patient and methodical, the Capetians, and later their Valois and Bourbon branches, tightened royal control over feudal lords until France emerged as Europe's dominant power. The reign of Louis XIV, the Sun King, was their zenith, projecting French influence in art, war, and diplomacy alike. But absolute rule rested on brittle foundations. Popular discontent and revolutionary fervor brought down the Bourbons in 1789, and though they clawed their way back to power, the upheavals of 1848 ended the line's hold on France for good. Yet the Bourbon branch would live on elsewhere, carrying the Capetian blood into new thrones and into rivalries that would pull in powers as far away as Russia. The Romanov dynasty. Russia's time of troubles ended when a young noble, Michael Romanov, was chosen as Tsar in 1613. Over the next 3 centuries, his descendants transformed a battered state into one of the world's largest empires. Peter the Great carved a modern navy from the forests and built St. Petersburg to face Europe. Catherine the Great expanded Russia's reach across continents. By the 19th century, the Romanovs were fixtures in the European balance of power. Yet while armies and territory grew, political reform lagged. Serfdom persisted, unrest deepened, and World War I pushed the empire to breaking point. Nicholas II's abdication in 1917 ended the dynasty, a fall so final that the family itself was executed in 1918. Their fate was a reminder that even the mightiest houses could vanish, as England's Plantagenets had centuries before. The Plantagenet dynasty. The Plantagenets began with an empire already in hand. Henry II ruled England and vast lands in France, creating a trans-channel realm unmatched in its day. His successors waged wars, built institutions, and defended their claims in the 100 Years' War. For a time, it seemed their dominion would last for generations, but the dynasty was undone from within. Rival branches turned on each other in the Wars of the Roses, a civil conflict as bitter as any foreign war. Richard III's defeat at Bosworth Field in 1485 closed the Plantagenet story. From the bloodshed emerged a new house, one that would unite England with a more centralized vision of royal power: the Tudors. The Tudor dynasty. Henry VII's victory at Bosworth ended civil war and gave England a fresh royal line. The Tudors ruled with boldness and reform, reshaping church and state under Henry VIII and overseeing a cultural and naval golden age under Elizabeth I. They presided over the beginnings of England's rise as a maritime power, outlasting threats from abroad and dissent at home. But their future hinged on succession. Henry's desperation for a male heir fractured his marriages and his church. Elizabeth's decision not to marry ended the dynasty entirely. In 1603, the crown passed to the Scottish Stuarts. Yet the Tudors had set precedents for monarchy that would ripple across Europe, including in the Bourbon courts of France and Spain. The Bourbon dynasty, a cadet branch of the Capetians. The Bourbons claimed the French throne in 1589 and the Spanish throne in 1700. For more than a century, they ruled over some of the most powerful states in Europe. Their courts radiated opulence, their armies fought across continents, and their politics shaped alliances and wars. In France, revolution proved their undoing. In Spain, they endured through upheaval, abdications, and restorations. Today, they survive as ceremonial monarchs, a living link to an age when dynasties still carved borders. But even as Bourbon power persisted in the south, a different force was rising in the German north, one that would redefine the balance of power in Europe: the Hohenzollern dynasty. The Hohenzollerns began as Brandenburg electors, but by marrying ambition to military discipline, they built the Kingdom of Prussia into a great power. Frederick the Great's reforms and Bismarck's diplomacy forged a unified Germany in 1871, with Wilhelm I as its first emperor. In little more than a century, they had gone from regional princes to rulers of an empire. Yet their empire was young, and its reliance on militarism proved fatal. Germany's defeat in World War I ended their rule, alongside the Habsburgs and Romanovs. In the aftermath, Europe's old order seemed gone, though in Italy, one family's legacy of influence endured without ever wearing a crown: the Medici family. The Medicis built power with banking ledgers, not battlefields. In 15th century Florence, they became the city's unofficial rulers by controlling its finances and political offices. Their wealth funded an artistic explosion that defined the Renaissance, nurturing talents from Michelangelo to Galileo. They placed 4 popes on the throne of St. Peter and married into Europe's royal houses. But their fortunes ebbed with their banking empire. Without the wealth to sustain their influence, the family's political power waned. In 1737, the last male Medici died, and Tuscany passed to the Habsburg-Lorraine line, a reminder that in Europe's great game of dynasties, even the patrons of genius could not outlast the march of time. The Stuart dynasty. The union of the English and Scottish crowns in 1603 placed James VI of Scotland on England's throne as James I, founding the Stuart dynasty. They inherited a kingdom rich in potential, but riven by religious division and political tension. Charles I's clash with Parliament erupted into civil war, ending with the king's execution in 1649, a shock that briefly abolished the monarchy. The Stuarts returned in 1660, but their restored rule never regained the old authority. James II's Catholicism cost him the crown in the Glorious Revolution of 1688, replaced by his Protestant daughter Mary II and her husband, William of Orange. By 1714, with Queen Anne's death, the dynasty's bloodline failed, and the throne passed to their distant German cousins, the Hanoverians, a shift that would steer Britain toward a new imperial century. The Hanoverian dynasty. The Hanoverians began as reluctant rulers. George I, a German prince, spoke little English, but his reign anchored the Protestant succession and tied Britain's fortunes more closely to continental Europe. Over the 18th century, they presided over Britain's rise as a global power, from the 7 Years' War to the expansion of its colonial empire. Yet their reign was far from smooth. George III faced rebellion in America and unrest at home, while Queen Victoria's long rule transformed the monarchy into a symbol of stability at the heart of the world's largest empire. When she died in 1901, the dynasty passed to the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, soon renamed Windsor, marking both continuity and adaptation in the face of a rapidly changing world.